She paid a professional killer to murder her millionaire husband and then vanished without a trace for over a decade. The way she orchestrated this entire scheme and nearly got away with it forever is absolutely mind-blowing. Meet Áurea Vázquez-Rijos, a stunning former beauty queen from Puerto Rico who could charm anyone she met, but behind that dazzling smile was a dark, dangerous secret. But beneath all that beauty and charisma was a stone-cold killer, someone willing to do whatever it took to get her hands on millions of dollars. This woman didn't just plan a murder, she masterminded one of the most elaborate escape plans in modern criminal history. We're talking about someone who staged her own brutal attack, fooled an entire police force, and then vanished across international borders like she never existed. For 13 long years, Áurea lived a completely new life while investigators searched the globe, desperate to bring her to justice. This case has everything: a picture-perfect wedding that turned into a nightmare, a multi-million-dollar murder contract, fake identities, international manhunts, and a final capture that nobody saw coming. Áurea thought she was untouchable. She believed she had committed the perfect crime and would never face justice for what she did. But sometimes the past has a way of catching up with you, no matter how far you run or how well you hide. Welcome to Grim Reality, where the darkest secrets never stay buried. Today, we're breaking down every shocking detail of how a beauty queen became one of the FBI's most wanted fugitives. Before the murder. Before the manhunt, before she became one of the FBI's most wanted, there was just Áurea, beautiful, magnetic, and dead set on changing her life. But not through hard work, not through building something of her own. She had a different plan. Áurea Vázquez-Rijos grew up in Puerto Rico. She was glamorous, confident, and carried herself like someone born to be famous. A former beauty queen with razor-sharp ambition, Áurea had mastered the art of turning heads in every room she entered. But beneath the glitz was a woman obsessed with money, the kind of money that could buy her freedom, status, and control. So when she crossed paths with a quiet Canadian businessman named Anhang, her entire life changed. Adam wasn't flashy. He was soft-spoken and deeply private, the kind of man who wore his wealth modestly. But make no mistake, he was loaded. By age 30, Adam had already built a fortune worth over $24 million through real estate, hotels, and tech investments. He had helped develop some of the most exclusive properties in Puerto Rico and owned part of a luxury restaurant in Old San Juan. When Áurea learned who he was, her eyes didn't just light up, they locked in. She saw Adam not as a man, but as a jackpot. And just like that, she flipped the switch. Áurea turned on her full Latina charm. Flirtation, warmth, seduction. She made herself irresistible. And Adam? He fell for it, hard. Very quickly, Áurea went from being a stranger to being Adam's girlfriend, and before long, his live-in partner. He showered her with gifts, expensive jewelry, designer clothes. And in one of his biggest displays of affection, he bought her an upscale restaurant in Old San Juan, which she proudly named Pink Skirt. It seemed like a Cinderella story, but Adam didn't know he'd just welcomed a wolf into his world. Because for Áurea, the restaurant, the gifts, the luxurious lifestyle, it still wasn't enough. She didn't want to just be rich with Adam, she wanted to be rich without him. She wanted to own the whole empire. And she wasn't plotting alone. As soon as she realized the size of Adam's bank account, she ran straight to her family. And instead of offering her a word of caution or asking her if she was in love, they reacted like she'd just scratched off a winning lottery ticket and hadn't claimed the prize yet. To them, Adam wasn't her boyfriend. He was the golden goose. So the family started brainstorming. How could they turn this relationship into generational wealth? How could they get their hands on all that money but make it look innocent? Step 1, lock him down. Áurea suddenly told Adam she was pregnant. No discussion, no explanation, just a declaration. And right on cue, her family leaned into their roles. They gathered around Adam and told him, "My son, you can't have a baby out of wedlock. That's not how we do things in this family." Adam, being Canadian, polite, and probably overwhelmed by the pressure and culture's expectations, agreed. He might not have been ready for marriage, but he wanted to do the right thing. So they had a quiet wedding, no big ceremony, just a simple legal union. And just like that, the trap was set. Almost immediately after the marriage, things started falling apart. Áurea's entire family, we're talking parents, siblings, extended relatives, began moving into Adam's home, literally packing their bags and choosing rooms like they were checking into a hotel. Loud music, food everywhere, chaos. And Adam, once the master of his mansion, was now living in a house that no longer felt like his own. He tried to be patient. He tried to talk things through. But then he found out something that shattered any hope he had left. Áurea was never pregnant. The whole reason he got married, the emotional push, the family pressure, was all based on a lie. And with that one revelation, the illusion came crashing down. Adam realized he'd been manipulated, lied to, trapped. He started to fear for his safety. This wasn't just a toxic marriage anymore. It felt dangerous. He moved out, renting a separate apartment just for himself. He hired a private bodyguard, and he started divorce proceedings, quietly but quickly. But Áurea, she wasn't letting go that easily. She'd already done the math. If she agreed to a divorce, the prenup kicked in, and she'd walk away with around $360,000. A decent amount, sure, but a far cry from the lifestyle she had come to expect. But if Adam were to die before the divorce was finalized, while they were still legally married, Áurea would be entitled to millions, over $8 million to be exact. Dead husbands don't file for divorce. Dead husbands don't change their wills. Dead husbands don't fight back. From that moment on, the plan shifted. Áurea wasn't just a gold digger anymore, she was a predator. And she didn't want a piece of the fortune, she wanted all of it. She began to play both sides. To Adam, she pretended to want peace. She asked to meet with him one-on-one to talk about the divorce and settle things like adults. She smiled. She made him believe they could walk away clean. But behind the scenes, Áurea was planning something monstrous. She started reaching out to people, including one very dangerous man, and made her intentions chillingly clear. Adam needed to die. And she didn't want it to look like a messy breakup. She wanted it to look like a robbery. Random, violent, untraceable. Because if no one suspected her, the money would flow straight into her hands. Meanwhile, Adam was trying to stay calm. He wasn't a confrontational man. He wanted to believe the worst was behind him, that things would be settled in court with lawyers like civilized people. He had no idea that the countdown to his murder had already begun. He agreed to meet Áurea in Old San Juan, in public, near the restaurant he had bought her. Just a short walk, a quick conversation, some paperwork. Then they'd go their separate ways. He thought it would be the start of his new life. But for Áurea, it was supposed to be his last night alive.
It was September 22nd, 2005, a warm Thursday night in Old San Juan. The cobblestone streets shimmered under the streetlights, and tourists wandered past pastel-colored buildings, laughing, snapping photos, soaking in the island breeze. But behind the beauty, something sinister was unfolding. Áurea Vázquez-Rijos had called Adam Anhang earlier that day. She told him she wanted to talk, to finally settle things face-to-face about the divorce. No drama, no lawyers, just one last walk together to talk things through and bring closure to the chaos. It was supposed to be a peaceful dinner, one final conversation to wrap up the nightmare their marriage had become. That's what Áurea Vázquez-Rijos told him anyway. "Let's talk things through," she said. "Just you and me, no drama. Let's end this like adults." And Adam Anhang believed her. It had been a rough year. The betrayal, the lies, the fake pregnancy, the prenup. He had moved out, hired a bodyguard, and was days away from officially filing for divorce. But maybe, just maybe, this dinner could offer some kind of closure, a clean exit. So that night, he made a critical mistake. He told his bodyguard to take the night off. Just a couple hours, what could go wrong? Adam showed up at Pink Skirt, the restaurant he had bought for Áurea, the same place that had once symbolized their love, now reduced to a silent battleground. They ate dinner quietly, no yelling, no accusations, just tension thick enough to cut through. By midnight, they were walking through the narrow streets of Old San Juan, headed back to the car. The cobblestone streets glistened in the glow of dim streetlights. Tourists had long since cleared out. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then, out of nowhere, a man stepped out of the shadows. He had a knife in his hand. There was no time to react. The man shoved Adam hard, knocking him off balance, and then the blade went in. Over and over, stab after stab, into his stomach, his chest, his back. 12 times in total, each thrust more savage than the last. Adam tried to fight back, but it was hopeless. He was being ripped apart, bleeding out on the same streets where he once built his dreams. And during the chaos, Adam cried out one final plea. "Run, baby, run!" He thought he was protecting her. Even as he was being slaughtered, he was trying to save the woman who had lured him into the trap. But Áurea didn't run. She didn't scream. She didn't cry for help. She just stood there, watching. Then, as if to sell the scene, the attacker shoved her to the ground. A soft push, not even enough to bruise, just enough to make it look like she was a victim too. The killer vanished into the darkness, swallowed by the night. Adam was left on the ground, gasping his last breaths as his blood soaked the cobblestone. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was already too late. At 1:30 a.m., Adam Anhang, millionaire, entrepreneur, son, brother, was pronounced dead. Áurea? She walked away with a scratch. A tiny surface-level wound, barely more than a paper cut. And here's where it gets truly sickening. Before Adam's body had even gone cold, Áurea woke up the next morning and filed a lawsuit against his estate. Not even 24 hours after his murder, she was already after his money. No public grief, no tears, no memorial posts. Just cold paperwork and a fast-moving legal team. As if she couldn't wait to cash in on his death. Meanwhile, police were scrambling. They were flooded with questions. Who would want to kill a man like Adam? Was this just a random robbery? Was it jealousy? A business rival? A gang? But something didn't add up. Nothing was stolen. Not Adam's wallet, not his expensive watch, not even his phone. It wasn't a mugging. It was a hit. But in the chaos and pressure to get results, the police did something that would later haunt the investigation for years. They arrested the wrong man. His name was Jonathan Roman Rivera, a 22-year-old dishwasher who worked near the restaurant. He didn't have a record, he didn't have a motive, he had no connection to Adam or Áurea whatsoever. But he matched a basic description someone gave. He had been in the area, and when questioned, he didn't want to talk without a lawyer, which made detectives suspicious. So they zeroed in on him. There was no DNA, no forensic evidence tying him to the scene, but an eyewitness, just one, pointed him out, and that was enough. And it won't even be surprising if Áurea had planted this said witness to cover up any tracks leading the crime back to her. In 2007, Jonathan was convicted of Adam's murder. He was sent to prison for a crime he didn't commit. And all the while, Áurea kept up appearances, playing the grieving widow, pretending she was just as shocked and devastated as everyone else. But behind closed doors, she was laughing. Because the plan had worked. The hitman had disappeared. An innocent man had taken the fall. And now, all she had to do was wait for the courts to release Adam's money. But even as she celebrated her so-called win, cracks were starting to show. Adam's family never bought the story. They hired private investigators. They pushed authorities to dig deeper. They didn't believe the murder was random, and they definitely didn't believe Áurea was innocent. Bit by bit, the truth started leaking out.
Whispers turned into statements. Statements turned into tips. And those tips would soon lead police to uncover a shocking murder-for-hire plot. One with money trails, secret meetings, and a killer who was ready to talk. Áurea thought she was free, but justice was catching up. For a moment, it looked like Áurea Vázquez-Rijos had pulled off the impossible. Her millionaire husband? Dead. An innocent man? Locked up. And she? Free, with a suitcase full of lies, a life in hiding, and a plan to collect millions from Adam's estate. But behind the scenes, a quiet storm was brewing, one that would eventually tear her perfect plan to shreds. Because Adam Anhang's father, Abraham Anhang, wasn't fooled. Not for a second. He knew his son, knew the kind of man he was, knew what he had told him in those final weeks about the fake pregnancy, the pressure to marry, and how uncomfortable and unsafe he felt around Áurea and her family. So when Adam was stabbed to death on a cobblestone street in Old San Juan, after Áurea had lured him out to talk about divorce, Abraham didn't believe it was random. He didn't believe Áurea was some poor widow caught in a tragedy. He believed it was murder, and that Áurea had set it up. And when police rushed to arrest a 22-year-old dishwasher named Jonathan Roman Rivera, Abraham didn't celebrate. He didn't clap when the trial ended in a conviction. He sat there, watched the whole thing, and called bullshit. Jonathan had no motive, no history of violence, no connection to Adam or Áurea. His only crime? Being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and fitting a vague description. So Abraham took matters into his own hands. He hired a private investigator, not just any gumshoe, but a colorful, eccentric Milan-based legend known only as Farouk, a man with international reach, unshakable instincts, and one mission: find Áurea. By then, she was long gone. No goodbye, no trace, no social media updates, just vanished. But Farouk was relentless. He started digging, connecting dots the police had missed. He tracked flight manifests, phone records, bank transfers, and eventually he found her, living in Italy, a country that doesn't extradite if the suspect could face the death penalty, a country Áurea had likely chosen on purpose. She had settled there, remarried, and given birth to twin daughters. She even began working as a tour guide for Jewish heritage trips across Europe, a job that let her blend in, travel freely, and pretend to be someone else entirely. But Farouk was always 2 steps behind her. He knew every name she used, every address she stayed at, and he wasn't the only one watching. Because while Farouk was tracking her from the shadows, the FBI was quietly building a case, a real one. And then, the truth blew wide open. The man who actually killed Adam, Alex Pabon-Colon, was finally found. And once they had him, he spilled everything. He told the FBI how Áurea had offered him $3 million to kill Adam. Not only that, he revealed she hadn't acted alone. Her sister, Marcia Vázquez-Rijos, and her ex-boyfriend, Jose Ferrer Sosa, had been there too. They all sat down with Alex. They discussed the murder, planned it, drew it out like a business deal. They told him when and where to strike, how to make it look random, how to disappear afterward. It was cold, calculated, and completely orchestrated. And there was proof. Investigators uncovered letters, handwritten letters, that Alex had sent to Marcia after the murder, demanding the rest of his payment. He wanted his $3 million, just like they promised. But by then, Áurea had fled, and the money was nowhere to be found. With Alex's confession, the entire facade came crashing down. The random robbery story? A lie. The grieving widow image? A performance. And Jonathan Roman Rivera? Wrongfully convicted. Everything Abraham Anhang had feared, every suspicion, every gut feeling, turned out to be true. Áurea hadn't just murdered his son. She'd built a whole new life on top of his grave. But now, with the truth out, her time was running out. And Áurea, she wasn't done playing games, because even with the murder for hire exposed, she still had one last trick up her sleeve. After Adam Anhang's murder, Áurea Vázquez-Rijos didn't just run, she vanished. Her destination? Italy. a country known for its scenic beauty, rich history, and, most importantly, its refusal to extradite suspects if there's even a chance they could face the death penalty. And Áurea knew that. This wasn't a desperate escape, this was a calculated move. She knew Puerto Rican authorities were building a case. She knew Adam's father wasn't letting this go. So she flew to a country where she believed she'd be untouchable. And for a while, it worked. She settled in Florence, changed her lifestyle, and started over. She got remarried to an Italian citizen, she had twin daughters, she built a cozy new life, pretending the blood on her hands had washed away somewhere over the Atlantic. She even landed work giving Jewish heritage tours across Europe, smiling for tourists, laughing, telling stories about history, all while hiding the one story that mattered most. Back in Puerto Rico, justice was at a standstill. The murder-for-hire plot had been exposed, the real killer had confessed, an innocent man had been exonerated. But the woman behind it all, still walking free, raising kids, sipping cappuccinos in sunlit plazas, and by all accounts, it looked like she was going to get away with it. Until 2013. That's when the FBI made their move, and it was straight out of a movie. They discovered Áurea was working as a tour guide for Jewish historical trips across Europe. So they created a fake job opportunity just for her, an offer to lead a group of American tourists on a guided tour. The only catch? The group was scheduled to meet in Madrid, Spain. Áurea, thinking it was just another gig, accepted. She boarded the flight, landed in Madrid, and the second her feet touched Spanish soil, boom, arrested. The sting had worked. After nearly a decade of freedom, the woman who thought she had outsmarted everyone was suddenly in handcuffs, caught not by force, but by her own ambition. From there, the U.S. launched the process to extradite her back to face trial. Áurea tried everything she could to block it, claiming her role as a mother, arguing it would harm her children, insisting she was being unfairly targeted. But the walls were closing in. Italy had protected her long enough. Spain wasn't playing that game. And so, after 13 years on the run, the beauty queen turned fugitive was finally shipped back to face the music. No more hiding, no more fake jobs, no more running. After 13 years on the run, dozens of aliases, and a life rebuilt halfway across the world, Áurea Vázquez-Rijos was finally back where it all started, Puerto Rico. But this time, she wasn't walking cobblestone streets in designer heels. She was walking into court in shackles. And the woman once known for her dazzling beauty, her charm, and her ability to manipulate just about anyone in her path now faced something she couldn't talk her way out of, a first-degree murder charge. From the moment she set foot inside the courtroom, Áurea's past came crashing down on her like a tidal wave. Prosecutors had spent years building their case, and they were ready. This wasn't just a murder trial. It was the unraveling of a carefully curated lie, piece by piece, witness by witness. One of the first and most damning testimonies came from the man she had once counted on to do her dirty work, Alex Pabon-Colon, the hitman she paid to stab Adam to death. He took the stand and told it all, in graphic, unflinching detail. How Áurea and her co-conspirators had approached him, how she offered him $3 million to make Adam disappear, how she handed him the exact time and place, and how she stood by and watched Adam die, doing absolutely nothing to stop it. The courtroom sat frozen as he described that night, the blood, the screams, Adam's final words, "Run, baby, run." And Áurea's reaction? Blank, emotionless, just like she had been when the murder happened. Then came the letters. The prosecution revealed handwritten notes from Alex to Áurea's sister, Marcia Vázquez-Rijos, trying to collect the money they owed him for the hit. These weren't rumors or theories. They were concrete evidence that the murder had been paid for, planned, and executed by Áurea and her inner circle. And it wasn't just Marcia. Áurea's ex-boyfriend, José Ferrer Sosa, was also named in the murder plot. He had helped arrange the logistics, served as the go-between, and stood by while Adam was hunted like prey. One by one, the walls closed in. And while the prosecution painted a vivid picture of greed, betrayal, and premeditated murder, Áurea's defense had almost nothing to offer. They claimed she was innocent, that she had nothing to do with Adam's death, that the testimony of a convicted hitman shouldn't be trusted, that this was all a misunderstanding, a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the jury wasn't buying it. Because Áurea hadn't just run from police, she had run from her entire life, changed her name, crossed borders, started a new family, and lived for years like nothing had happened. If she were innocent, why disappear? Why leave her twin daughters behind in Italy? Why lie to every country she entered? Why fake a whole identity if she had nothing to hide? The evidence was damning, the lies impossible to ignore, and most of all, there was motive. Áurea knew that if she divorced Adam legally, she'd walk away with only $360,000. But if he died, if she became a widow, she would get $8 million. That wasn't love. That wasn't grief. That was cold, calculated murder for money. As the trial reached its climax, the prosecution reminded the jury of Adam's final months, how he feared for his safety, how he had hired a bodyguard, how he had left his own home just to feel safe again, how he'd told his father, his friends, and his lawyer that he didn't trust Áurea, that something felt off. And then he was dead. It took the jury less than a full day to reach their decision. On October 3, 2018, Áurea Vázquez-Rijos was found guilty of first-degree murder for hire. The verdict sent shockwaves through Puerto Rico and far beyond. This wasn't just the conviction of a killer. This was the end of a 13-year-long manhunt, the fall of a beauty queen who thought she was untouchable, and the final chapter in one of the most cold-blooded betrayal stories ever told. Áurea sat motionless as the verdict was read, the same way she stood silent the night Adam died. No tears, no emotion, just the weight of a life built on lies finally collapsing. But the story doesn't end there, because justice didn't stop with her. Her sister Marcia and ex-boyfriend Jose Ferrer Sosa were also extradited and charged, facing their own day in court for helping plot a murder that robbed the world of a kind, brilliant man who had trusted the wrong person. As for Adam's father, Abraham, he never gave up. He fought for justice when everyone else moved on. He saw through the act, the lies, the silence, and in the end, he was right.
If stories like this leave you stunned, shaken, and needing answers, you're in the right place. Welcome to Grim Reality, where we uncover the darkest, most jaw-dropping true crime stories from around the world. Hit subscribe and join us, because the truth, it always finds its way out.